Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Kev's Movie Corner. I am Kev. This week we are talking about The Apartment. This movie was released in 1960. It stars Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, and Fred MacMurray. A brief synopsis from the Internet Movie Database, or IMDb, is a Manhattan insurance clerk tries to rise in his company by letting its executives use his apartment for trysts, but office politics and his own romantic hopes complicate matters. This movie is just over 2 hours long. It is a romantic comedy. And a quick note before we get too far into this, that this there is instance and talk of suicide in this movie. So this was a good movie though. It's like I said, it's 2 hours long, but it doesn't seem like it goes takes that long. Like it goes that long. It starts with Bud, Jack's character, Bud Baxter, telling you about his life. He is a insurance clerk at a big company in New York. Kind of a low-level, just clerk. He has a little apartment. He talks about his apartment, talks about how he just kind of lives there, he just kind of lives there, works, but he works late most nights because of the how he basically lends out his apartment to all the executives to have their extramarital affairs. He doesn't specifically come out and say that, but he says there's reasons that, that he can't go home, or he stays late to work, not because he's overly ambitious, but because he can't always go home at the time. And it cuts away to somebody at an apartment, a man and a woman, and then you see him standing outside, and he talks to the guy whenever they come back, and you learn pretty quickly what's going on. Anyway, you quickly see it kind of how many people are taking advantage of him for this. You have multiple higher ups doing this to him, and telling them that he's gonna, they're gonna put him in for a promotion and all that kind of stuff. Eventually, he does get promoted. He even gets promoted and even gets offered tickets to see a movie. He gets offered free tickets to a movie. His boss gives those to him, and he decides to ask an elevator operator who he is smitten with, and she agrees, even though she's agreed to see another man that night. She tells him that she'll still show up to the movie and go with him. And what Baxter doesn't know, this is Fran Kubelik. What she doesn't know is that his boss, the one who gave him the promotion, Mr. Sheldrake, who is played by Fred MacMurray, is actually the one taking out Fran that night as well. And the whole reason that he got the promotion is he traded his key to his apartment to Mr. Sheldrake for that girl. So he doesn't realize this, though. And He gets stood up at the movies because she believes that Mr. Sheldrake is going to leave his wife for her, and stays with him instead. Baxter is just, he just is, doesn't really know what's going on, so he's just like, oh, you didn't, you know, you were with another guy having drinks. You couldn't just leave that. That's fine, whatever. It's what he tells her when he finds out later. So, movie goes on, it eventually gets to I don't know if it's the next scene or a little later, but they go to a Christmas party or Christmas Eve party. And Fran ends up finding out from Mr. Sheldrake's secretary about all of his past affairs with women in the office, including the secretary, and how basically every woman that he's dated in that building has been told the same thing. They always get taken to the same restaurant. They always get told that he's going to leave his wife. Everything's exactly the same. And Fran that night is supposed to meet Sheldrake at the apartment. At this point, Baxter, Bud, learns that she is the woman that has been coming to his apartment at the same time by a broken mirror that he had found before in his apartment and given to Sheldrake. Said, hey, your lady friend left this. And he learns that it's her. He's upset. He goes out drinking while Sheldrake and Kubelik are at his apartment. He comes home with another woman, and this is where he finds that Fran has taken a bunch of sleeping pills and passed out on his bed. She's overdosed. He kicks out the woman that he's brought home, runs to his neighbor who's a doctor, who helps get Fran up and get her hopefully back to health. I thought it was interesting. I did find a fact about this that there was doctors present for this, on set for this, to make sure that scene was accurate. The doctor slaps Fran several times. They actually told the director that they should have slapped her harder, but the director wouldn't do it after seeing how red her face was from slapping her the first time doing it. So they just kind of went with it. But they did have doctors on scene to say how they would go about bringing somebody or reviving somebody from an incident like that, which I thought was interesting. So you've got that whole ordeal happens, and then she stays while she's recovering. She stays for a couple days in Baxter's apartment, and they kind of grow a bond together. And Baxter falls for her a little bit even more. He kind of had a crush on her before that. He kind of falls for her even more, even though she still kind of has feelings for Sheldrake. She talks about how she always falls in love with the wrong guy, doesn't seem to see that Baxter is in love with her, and she still has feelings for Sheldrake. After she leaves, after a couple days, her brother-in-law comes looking for her, and ends up going to the office where she worked as an elevator operator, and finds her boss, who knows where she is because he walked into Baxter's office or Baxter's home and saw her there, thinking that he could use the apartment, and just walked in and recognized her. and then just kind of got the wrong idea, didn't know what was going on, but believed what was going on, believed something was going on between the two, and then sent the brother-in-law over there. Brother-in-law isn't very happy with what's going on. He tells Fran to get her things, and the doctor shows up at that time and says how she's doing, and brother-in-law gets upset, asks why the doctor was seeing her, what was wrong with her, gets mad about the sleeping pills, asks why she took the sleeping pills. When Baxter stands up for her to protect her, he gets knocked out by the brother-in-law. And the next day he shows up to work. Sheldrake says that he's going to calls Sheldrake into his office, or calls Baxter. Sheldrake calls Baxter into his office. Woo, sorry. And tells him that he's going to take Fran off of his hands after the couple days. He's now left his wife, or he says he's left his wife, but he's actually been kicked out because his secretary, he had fired his secretary, who then went to his wife and told his wife about all the affairs, so his wife kicked him out. So he is now staying in the city, and he is going to promote Baxter to his right-hand man, his assistant director. Baxter gets the promotion. Fran and Sheldrake end up together, and Baxter ends up alone again, all by himself. This is just like right after Christmas. A couple days later, Sheldrake says that he's gonna. You get to New Year's. This all happens, I guess, over the course of a couple weeks, is what it seems like the movie happens. It doesn't seem like it's that long, because you've got Christmas and New Year's in kind of this little short span. So, Sheldrake and Fran are going out for New Year's. He asks Baxter for the key to his apartment again, because he can't have the key. Or he threw away the old key that he had when he was going to see when he was going back home. Said he couldn't have it when his wife was around, so he threw out the old key. He asks Baxter for the key again. Baxter tells him no, and Sheldrake says, "Well, you're throwing away your career. Do you really want to do that?" And he throws him a key. It ends up being the key to the executive washroom at their office, and Baxter quits on the spot and leaves. He goes home and starts packing up his apartment. When Sheldrake is out with Fran that night, he tells her that they have to drive to Atlantic City to get a hotel room because they can't get one in New York on New Year's Eve. He tells Fran about the whole story about Baxter not giving his apartment, saying that he especially wouldn't give it to him to spend the night with her. And she realizes that Baxter's the one that she should be with. And while Sheldrake is turned around to sing, Auld Lang Syne for the new year, she runs out of the restaurant and runs to Baxter's apartment, and the two kind of rekindle, and then end up playing a game of cards, and that's where it ends. Yeah. That's basically the movie. I mean, there's other random stuff that happens in there, as always in any movie, but that's basically the movie. There was a couple other instances that were interesting that I found in trivia that I'll bring up here in a second. This movie was a little controversial among critics because of the subject matter of like extramarital affairs and things like that. But it did do pretty well at the box office. It made $24 million on a $3 million budget. So it did pretty well at the box office. It was nominated for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was nominated for 10 Academy Awards. It won 5 of them. Those were Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best Editing, and Best Art Direction. So it did win, it did pretty well. This was also the also turned into a Broadway play called Promises, Promises by Burt Bacharach and Hal David and Neil Simon in 1968, so a few years after it was made. It is in the Library of Congress. It was put in the Library of Congress in 1994. And yeah, this was, like I said, it was kind of controversial. Jack, or not Jack, Fred MacMurray, the one who played Sheldrake, who was having the affair, the big boss who was having the affair. He talked about afterwards he was berated by women in the street for making a dirty, filthy movie. One of them even hit him with her purse, saying that she took her 6-year-old to see it because she thought it was a Disney film. So I thought that was funny. And he had a ton of fan mail that was overwhelmingly against him in this role because they're used to seeing him as a upstanding character. He actually he vowed to never play another role like that again because he was shaken so much by that. So that's interesting. I thought that was interesting. There was, let's see here. There was a couple other interesting things. There's a point in this where one of the things right before Kubelik takes the sleeping pills, she gives Sheldrake a present, a Christmas present, and he gives her $100 bill. Basically, he says he doesn't have time to go shopping for her, and just gives her $100 and tells her to buy herself something nice, which would be demoralizing, obviously, for anybody. But $100 cash, 1960, compared to 2025, is equivalent to $1,092. So that's a significant present, I would say. I mean, it's not a good present, but it's a significant present. I told you about the Academy Awards, 5 of them. Billy Wilder, who was the director of this, was the first person to win an Academy Award for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay, which is interesting. I told you Jack Lemmon is punched. He's knocked out in one of the scenes. He was supposed to mime being punched. He didn't move right and was actually knocked down on accident in the film. They kept that scene in there, so he was actually punched in the face, which I thought was also interesting. 2 other things that I found interesting on this. C.C. Baxter is supposed to be a poor accountant, which is, fine. Everybody, whatever. Inside his apartment, back then, there's 2 lamps that you see in his apartment. Back then, they wouldn't have been worth much. Today, they are worth $30,000 to $40,000 a piece. They are Tiffany studio lamps, so they are expensive. Now, they wouldn't have been worth much then. And they're the opening scene of that movie. They use an effect that people have seen in a lot of things. You've probably everybody's seen it probably, but there's a scene where you see a bunch of people in the room, the accountants in the room on the floor of the insurance company working at their desks, and they used forced perspective, which is a technique where everything gets smaller as you go back farther to make it look like it's all the same size. They used it in Elf to make Will Ferrell look larger than everybody else in the North Pole when he was with everybody else. But they would put They put adults in suits in front of full-size desks at the front. About halfway back, they put kids in suits in smaller desks. And then at the very back of the office, in order to make it look, they put tiny desks with paper cutouts that were moved by wires to make it look, since they didn't have enough space to make a huge room to make the small room look like it's massive. So, interesting ways that they do things like that. It's always fun to see how they make movies like that. But, yeah. Anyway, that's The Apartment. Again, 2 hours. It's an interesting 2 hours. It's it's a pretty good kind of like romantic comedy, drama type, whatever film. So if you like something like that, I recommend going to watch it. It goes pretty quick. It's not like a slow paced. It's pretty well paced. So I recommend it. I think it was pretty good. So I think that's it for this week, though, guys. Next week we're watching Spartacus, which is also from 1960. So if you want to watch that as well, and join me for that next week, same time, same YouTube. So hope to see you there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and I will talk to you guys next week.